There is no sun here, no moon, no rhythm to measure the moments. The very idea of a moment has no meaning. You are adrift in a vastness that feels both infinite and intimate, as though the whole universe is whispering directly into your soul. The space around you shimmers faintly, not with light, but with awareness. It is the presence of something immense, something holy, stretching beyond sight, sound, or thought. Your senses adjust to this strange eternity. There's a warmth here, though no fire burns. A gentle vibration hums through you, like the memory of music you've never heard but somehow know by heart. It is the pulse of the Eternal One, the uncreated source from which all that will ever be shall flow. Scripture says in Genesis, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Yet here, before even the first heartbeat of creation, you see what those words can never fully contain: the deep stillness before the word is spoken. This is the womb of reality. Some say this moment is guarded by Uriel, the archangel who stands at the very edge of dawn. Others insist there is no guard at all, only the unblinking gaze of the Almighty. And here, in this unlit expanse, it's impossible to tell who is right. You feel both watched and entirely alone. Far in the distance, or perhaps closer than your next breath, you glimpse the faintest glimmer. It is not light in the way you know it, but the promise of light coiled and waiting. The glimmer shifts, expands, and then folds back into itself, like a breath that has not yet been exhaled. The Book of Enoch speaks of the place of the Holy Great One, where rivers of fire flow beneath a throne suspended in nothingness. Here, that imagery feels less like poetry and more like an imperfect translation of the reality before you. There is no throne, yet you sense authority. No fire, yet you feel its consuming purity. You drift closer to the glimmer, though closer is a strange word here. Distance bends oddly, as if the very fabric of space does not yet know the rules it will one day obey. Your movement feels more like intention than travel. Each thought shapes the reality around you, as though your awareness is part of the architecture of this pre-creation realm. Then, a sound, not sharp, not sudden, but vast, swells in the silence. It's a single tone, low and resonant, rising from nowhere and everywhere at once. The vibration travels through you, rearranging the very way your spirit perceives. It is not music, yet it holds the seed of all future melodies. You realize with a quiet awe that this is the first stirrings of divine speech, the word preparing to be spoken. As the tone grows, so does the glimmer. The shimmer becomes threads, fine as spider silk, weaving outward into an intricate lattice. This, you understand, is the blueprint of the cosmos. Galaxies as seeds, oceans as droplets in a boundless design. But even now, nothing has begun. It is all potential, all waiting for the single command that will break the stillness. A question forms in your mind, one you didn't create yourself. What was before even this? The thought is almost too heavy to hold. Some say there was never a before, only the endless present of the eternal. Others whisper of an earlier creation, long gone, whose ashes formed the soil for this new beginning. You can't know which is true. The lattice shifts, and you see shapes moving at its edges. Not angels, not yet, but the essences from which angels will be born. They are like thought given form, beauty without face, purpose, without history. They swirl in patterns both orderly and wild, drawn to the lattice as if hearing their own names for the first time. You feel drawn too, though you know you don't belong here. Not yet. Humanity is still only an idea, an echo in the mind of God. And yet, something tells you that what happens in this realm will one day decide your fate. The tone softens, stretching into a silence so deep it feels like a new kind of sound. The shimmer fades, folding itself inward again, and the vastness returns to its quiet anticipation. You realize that what you've seen is only the preparation. The dawn is coming, but before it breaks, something else will stir in the stillness. And when it does, nothing, not heaven, not earth, not even the flow of time, will ever be the same. The chamber of the first council stretches beyond vision, yet you know you stand at its center. The air hums, not with sound, but with the weight of decisions about to be made. Radiance moves in slow tidal currents, gathering around a presence so absolute that the entire realm seems to lean toward it. Figures of light appear when no footsteps fall, each carrying an essence distinct from the others. Some blaze like molten gold, others glimmer with the soft blue of still waters, and some are so bright you see them only as the edges of a flame you cannot stare into directly. These are the sons of God, though they have not yet sung their first hymn. There is no throne, yet authority saturates the space. It is the Ancient of Days, without form, without beginning, whose will draws all here. Around him, the hosts arrange themselves in patterns that seem random until you sense their hidden geometry, a living constellation of loyalty and purpose. When the first voice rises, it does not echo. Instead, the air itself bends to carry it. Its tone is both command and invitation, describing the boundaries of light and dark, the flow of waters, the gathering of land. Another voice follows, shaping the laws by which stars will burn and worlds will turn. It is the architecture of reality being spoken into existence. Each decree is like the striking of a tuning fork that sends ripples through the unseen, aligning what will be with what must be. You feel the symmetry of it in your bones. Some say Michael speaks here as chief herald of creation. Others believe Raphael's healing wisdom frames the first design. And there are those who argue no single one leads, that all voices are facets of a single mind. You cannot tell which is true, for each word feels both personal and infinite. The council swells with anticipation as a new decree forms, not of elements, not of stars, but of a living image. Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. The effect is immediate. The brightness of some beings flares with joy, as if this thought completes the vision of creation, but others dim, withdrawing into an unreadable stillness. A mortal creature, made of earth yet breathing the breath of God, capable of choice, of worship, of betrayal. It is a beauty laced with danger. You notice a subtle dissonance at the edges of the assembly. It is not yet rebellion, but a reluctance, a quiet weighing of the cost. What does it mean for a being of dust to bear the same reflection as the immortal host? And what will be required to keep that reflection pure? The Ancient of Days remains silent, allowing the tension to breathe. The light of the council does not fade, yet the air feels heavier. Beneath the harmony, a question hums, unspoken but inescapable. Will all who serve here agree to the shaping of this new creation? That question will not be answered in this moment. But somewhere within this gathering, a thought has already taken root, one that will grow into a storm no angel can outrun. A stillness settles over the council, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that precedes a storm no one yet recognizes. The words of creation hang in the air like a freshly drawn breath, and you feel their echo pulsing through the endless hall. Then it comes. At first, it is only the faintest ripple in the harmony, an imperceptible shift that would be easy to miss if the space weren't so perfectly balanced. It moves not through sound, but through intention, a subtle vibration running against the current of divine order. Somewhere in the assembly, one will is no longer in complete accord with the source. The shape of that will sharpens like glass cooling into a mirror. It belongs to one whose brightness is undeniable, a being whose very presence burns with artistry and precision, whose voice has always harmonized with the highest songs. He has been called the morning star, the bearer of light. But now, deep within, a question stirs that no other has dared to form. Why them? It is not spoken aloud, but it is as loud in his essence as a trumpet blast. Why should dust wear the image of the eternal when fire and spirit have served for ages without flaw? Why should something so fragile be placed at the center of creation's story? Some say this moment is recorded in Isaiah's words. You said in your heart, I will ascend. I will make myself like the Most High. But here the thought is not yet rebellion. It is a quiet seed hidden beneath layers of loyalty, waiting for the right soil to grow. Around him, the council continues. Voices speak of the rivers that will divide the lands, the seasons that will guide harvest and rest, the lights that will rule day and night. You see joy radiating through most of the host, but in that one bright presence, joy has been replaced by calculation. The book of Enoch speaks of watchers, heavenly beings who observe but do not intervene until their appointed time. Now you understand why. There are watchers here, silent and knowing, their gaze fixed not on the words being spoken, but on the currents beneath them. They feel the tremor too, and though no movement stirs, you sense their readiness for what may come. A faint distortion touches the space, barely visible, like heat rising from stone. The morning star's light wavers, not dimming, but shifting into a brilliance that draws the gaze of those around him. The attention feeds something inside, and the quiet question becomes more defined. If I can inspire them, why should I not lead them? The Ancient of Days remains unmoved, as though the thought itself has always been known. The decree continues. Life will multiply, and all that is made will be called good. The hosts bow in reverence, yet one does so with a slight delay, enough for the watchers to notice, though no words are exchanged. Some would say it is here that the war begins, not with weapons or armies, but with a thought, an unaligned note in a perfect chord. Others insist that free will demands such moments, that without them, loyalty has no meaning. You cannot decide who is right, but you can feel the truth of both. The council nears its close. Light gathers into pillars, marking the boundaries of what will soon exist. The vision of humanity, still unborn, lingers in the minds of the host. Most see it as the crown of creation. One sees it as an imbalance in need of correction. And in the vastness beyond this hall, something ancient waits for that imbalance to widen. The council dissolves into silence, but it is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of a gaze. You sense it before you see it, a radiance too complete for the mind to hold, a presence before which even the brightest among the host bow their crowns. There is no path toward it, yet you find yourself drawn forward. The expanse folds in on itself until you stand before the throne beyond time. It is not built, not placed, not supported. Its existence is the axis on which all else will turn. From it flows an endless river of light, and yet that light is not a thing you see with your eyes. It is a truth that pours directly into your spirit, filling it until every corner is illuminated. Around the throne, great beings veil themselves in wings of fire. They do not look up. Even their eternal vision is not made to meet the source directly. Scripture whispers of these moments in Revelation, of living creatures full of eyes, unceasing in their praise. And here, the words take on a weight you can feel. The Ancient of Days does not speak, but the air around the throne vibrates with his intention. You realize that here, speech is not needed. Every thought of the One is reality itself, and every pause is part of the design. It is then you notice him, still radiant, still beautiful, the morning star, standing just far enough from the throne to observe without bowing. His face is unreadable, the light around him unbroken. To the untrained eye, he would seem as devoted as the rest. But you have seen the slight delay before his bow, the way his gaze lingers a moment too long, not in worship, but in measure. The watchers are here too, stationed like silent sentinels along the edges of the great light. You feel their focus lock on him, though no gesture betrays it. Some say Uriel stands among them, keeper of the first fire and guardian of divine mysteries. Others argue the throne needs no guardians, for no will can stand against it uninvited. Still, the watchers do not move. The moment stretches, timeless yet pressing. The Ancient of Days turns his gaze, not with eyes, but with the entirety of his being, toward the host. In that gaze is the weight of love so pure it crushes and restores in the same breath. Every being here feels it, and yet you sense that not all respond in the same way. For most, it is joy. For him, it is something else, a narrowing, a turning inward, as if the more he sees of this absolute authority, the more certain he becomes that it could be amended. The book of Enoch speaks of the high places where the throne stands, from which the foundations of creation are measured. Here, those foundations extend outward like invisible threads, anchoring the worlds that will soon be born. You realize that to challenge the throne is to tug at those threads, and if one snaps, the design will unravel. Some say rebellion begins with a shout, but here it begins with a single gaze held a moment too long. And somewhere far from this chamber, though time has not yet begun, the shadow of that gaze will one day pass over Eden. The stillness fractures, not in sound, but in atmosphere. Something sharp cuts through the reverent hum of the gathered host. It is a voice rising from within the circle of light, clear as crystal and deliberate as a blade drawn slowly from its sheath. The morning star speaks. He does not shout. His tone is smooth, almost reverent, but each word carries a precision that leaves no room for accident. If this new creation is to bear your image, should not all of heaven bear witness to its worthiness? The question hangs in the air, wrapped in a veneer of loyalty, yet weighted with implication. It is not defiance, at least not in name, but it shifts the balance of the hall. Beings that moments ago glowed with anticipation now glance toward one another, uncertain. Some say this moment echoes the role of the accuser described in Job, the one who stands before the throne to test, to question, to sift. But here, the question is not about a man named Job, nor about a trial on earth. It is about whether the very idea of humanity should pass unchallenged. They will be fragile, he continues, light flickering subtly around him. They will fall to temptation. If they are to carry your reflection, what will stop them from staining it? And if they do, who will bear the cost? The words cut through the chamber. You notice the watchers stiffen, their posture tightening like a bow drawn to full tension. It is not the question itself that unsettles them. It is the undercurrent. For in the place where questions are meant to seek understanding, this one seeks leverage. The Ancient of Days remains silent, and the silence magnifies the weight of every heartbeat in the hall. Others among the host speak in response, not to oppose the question, but to reaffirm the design. They speak of freedom as a necessary gift, of love as something that can only be chosen. The morning star listens, but you see the faintest curl of satisfaction at the edges of his radiance. Whether their answers convince him or not, they have acknowledged his voice. And in the economy of pride, acknowledgement is a kind of currency. Some whisper that this was the first fracture, not yet a rebellion, but the first moment when one will set itself parallel to the will of the throne, rather than beneath it. Others insist such questions are part of heaven's own process, proof that even here, the testing of ideas sharpens the truth. You look back toward the throne. The light there has not dimmed. It is as unwavering as it has always been, as if the question and the heart behind it were already known before it was spoken. And yet, the silence continues, like a seal placed over something that will not be answered here, not now. The host begins to disperse, threads of light moving outward into the vastness beyond the hall, but he lingers. The morning star's gaze follows them, not in fellowship, but in measure. The thought has been planted, the question asked. Now he waits, not for the throne's reply, but for the ripple it will send through others. And somewhere in that waiting, you feel the first shadow of war. The great assembly has emptied, but the hall is not deserted. Far from it. In the stillness that follows the council's dispersal, you notice them. Those who did not speak, who did not even shift when the morning star raised his voice. They stand apart, their forms as constant as carved stone, their light neither flaring nor fading. They are the silent witnesses. They are not watchers in the same sense as those who stand guard at the throne. These bear no swords of fire, no commanding posture. Their role is older, more mysterious. They simply remain, present at every great turning of heaven's story, yet never intervening. The Book of Enoch hints at such beings, describing them as those who record but are not recorded. Their presence is unsettling in its stillness. Even here, where eternity feels alive, they are fixed. You have the sense that their awareness stretches far beyond the moment, through pasts that never were and futures that may never be. The morning star notices them too. He does not speak to them, yet his path bends subtly in their direction as he leaves the hall. It is as though he wishes to gauge their reaction to his words, but the silent witnesses offer none. They neither nod nor turn away. Their light is unchanged, and that lack of acknowledgement seems to vex him more than outright opposition would have. Around them, the vastness hums with a subdued tension. The host of heaven is still processing the question raised in the council, and while most will soon return to their work, preparing the fabric of the coming worlds, something has shifted. A thread has been pulled taut, and those who can sense it feel the air charged with potential fracture. Some say these silent witnesses are the embodiment of divine memory, keeping perfect record of every intention as well as every word. Others believe they are the very measure by which justice will one day be weighed, that they are not just observers, but the balance itself. If that is true, then the morning star has already been weighed once, here in this quiet aftermath. And though no verdict has been spoken, you cannot help but feel that the scales have shifted slightly. You stand among them, yet you are invisible to them. Or perhaps they see you entirely, in ways you cannot comprehend. Their focus is not on your presence, but on the ripples moving outward from this day. Ripples that will not touch the earth for an age, but which are already altering the shape of what is to come. The morning star departs, his radiance receding into the shimmer beyond the chamber. Other beings pass by the silent witnesses without acknowledging them, as though their constancy is simply part of the architecture of heaven. But you know better. You can feel it now. Nothing passes here unnoticed. The silence holds for what feels like 1,000 breaths. And in that silence, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. When the trial begins in earnest, these witnesses will not speak to sway it, but their record will be perfect. And in the end, that record will either save him or condemn him. You drift into a library without walls, a horizon of hovering script where the letters glow like embers and breathe like living things. There are no shelves here, only currents of light. Scrolls unfurl midair and re-roll themselves as if testing beginnings and endings, the way oceans test a shore. The air smells of rain that has never fallen. Every line you pass hums with possibility, and every possibility feels like it is watching you back. Hands of fire appear, neither winged nor crowned, only steady, and they bear documents that are not yet written and never fully blank. When the hands tilt a parchment, the text rearranges itself, words loosening like sand and settling into a new pattern. You realize with a hush that these are records of futures that might be, futures that may refuse to be, futures that wait on a single nod from a soul not yet born. Some say this is where the heavenly tablets are kept, the place Jubilees whispers of, where times and seasons, covenants and reckonings are inscribed. Others insist these are not tablets at all, but songs, melodies of destiny that the faithful will one day hear as conscience. You cannot decide which is truer because both feel true at once. A scroll nearest you opens of its own will. Its parchment is luminous, softer than light, edged with the faintest gold. Inside you see a garden that has not yet grown, trees whose fruit carry more than sweetness, and a river that reflects a sky not yet blue. At the center moves a figure shaped from breath and dust. He walks as if listening to a voice that leaves no footprints yet marks every step. Then the scene shivers and splits like a reflection on stirred water. Another path appears, the same garden, the same trees, the same man, but his gaze reaches past the boundaries set for his good. The line of the story curves, the colors change tone, and a quiet ache enters the air around the script, as if the parchment itself mourns what it has only begun to imagine. The secret things belong to the Lord our God. Deuteronomy will one day say, but the things revealed belong to us and to our children forever. Here you feel both truths press against your skin. What is secret and what is offered? These scrolls seem to live at the seam where mystery meets responsibility. A rustle moves through the expanse, though nothing physical stirs. You sense the silent witnesses at a distance, the same still gravity you felt before, and you realize they are near whenever these pages open, not to edit, not to warn, only to attend. Their silence somehow is part of the ink. Another scroll lifts. This one bears seals. Not 7 yet, but a language of closures that look like stars sleeping with their eyes open. When the fire hands draw near it, the seals do not break. They glow, and through their glow you glimpse shadows of thrones and stormbows, living creatures full of eyes, and a book that belongs to a lamb, not yet slain in history, and yet slain before the foundation of the world. Revelation will speak of such things, but here the words are only silhouettes, rehearsals of a music the future will learn by heart. You reach, if reaching is what thought does in this realm, and a smaller roll drifts toward you, its edge warm as a breath against your palm. The first line writes itself. Mercy rejoices over judgment. The second line argues gently. Justice establishes peace. The third refuses to choose. Both will be woven until the end. The ink brightens and dims like a pulse, as if the parchment is alive to the tension it carries. A presence enters, familiar now in beauty and exactness, the morning star. His radiance, once simple as a blade of sun, has become faceted, catching and throwing light in ways that mislead the eye. He does not touch the scrolls, but he watches the words shift with an attention so intent it feels like pressure. If futures may be weighed, he says softly, then futures may be guided. The fire hands do not answer. They hold their stations as if they were the stations. But the sentence lingers, a thread trying to stitch itself across many pages at once. You feel the temptation hiding beneath its embroidery, to guide as pretext for ownership, to steer possibility until it becomes a mirror. Some argue the future is a river, shaped by banks, moving toward a sea it cannot refuse. Others say it is a garden, pruned by wisdom, blossoming only where love tends it carefully. A quieter voice whispers, it is a marriage of both. A river running through a garden, with banks that can be moved by prayer and roots that can hold during flood. The morning star turns toward you as if he senses the debate in your thoughts, and his light warms, almost kindly. Would it not be mercy, he asks, to fix the most dangerous outcomes before they exist? To spare the image bearers their pain by making certain choices unreachable? Your answer rises before your mind completes it. Love cannot be shaped by walls alone. It needs a horizon it may approach or forsake. Genesis will say the garden held both plenty and boundary, blessing within and a gate without. Choice lived at the center of trust like a flame cupped in gentle hands. The hands of fire lift a new scroll, and for a breath the room seems to hold nothing else. The page extends far beyond sight, but a single sentence travels its length like a carrier wave. Behold, I set before you life and death. Choose life. The words leave a sweetness in the air that tastes like rain returned to the sky. The morning star's gaze hardens, so slightly you would miss it if your spirit weren't already listening for tremors. He steps back, measuring seal and script, weighing decree against desire. If he hoped these rooms would agree that the safest future is the most controlled one, the scrolls have not confirmed him. They have only insisted on a deeper safety, the kind that trusts love enough to risk it. From the far edge of the archive, the watchers appear, not with drawn flame, but with the hush that follows every true word. They pass behind the fire hands, across the sleepless seals, and through the aisles of unwritten endings. Their attention touches the morning star and moves on, like a weather front, neither inviting nor refusing rain. One last page unfurls as you turn to go. It shows a city you do not know, a hill ringed with voices, and a cross standing at the seam of two worlds, a hinge where judgment and mercy kiss without swallowing each other. The letters blur, then settle, then blur again, as if time itself will tremble when this sentence is finally read aloud in history. You understand then why these scrolls are kept where no feet can tread and no pride can edit. They are not here to predict, they are here to prepare, to ready heaven for patience and earth for hope, to remind every will, bright or breathing, that the story is vast and that the author is no tyrant. You leave the library as quietly as you entered, light brushing your shoulders like tall grass in a windless field. Behind you, the pages keep breathing, rewriting not the end, but the roads that may lead there. And somewhere just beyond the threshold, the one who would guide them waits for a chamber where words can be turned into verdicts. You arrive where meanings become matter. The chamber is not larger than the council you have known, yet it feels heavier, as if gravity learns a stricter law here. Pillars of living light form a square within a circle, and in the center, a platform hovers, clear as crystal, weightless as breath. Upon it, truth will be weighed without ornament and without the refuge of shadows. Presences gather without footsteps, ranks of the host in quiet order. The silent witnesses stationed like milestones along the rim, and at the far edge, the morning star, bright as a winter horizon. He carries no weapon, only certainty. Thrones appear the way dawn appears, first as certainty, then as sight. Fire runs like rivers beneath them. You remember a line you have not yet read in history. Thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. The court sat, and the books were opened. Daniel will write that, Daniel 7. Here, the words are weather. Pages open themselves and script rings when it touches the air. No herald calls for order. A beam descends and becomes a balance, not with pans and chains, but with horizons. On one horizon, freedom, radiant and perilous. On the other, control, orderly and airless. The scale breathes once, ready. The morning star steps forward. His voice is a polished river. Let the worth of the dust bearers be proven before they are enthroned with your likeness, he says. Honor on the surface, leverage at the root. Let our zeal preserve your image from harm. Grant me stewardship to guide them from error before it is written into time. You feel the pull of his argument. Mercy recast as prevention, love as correction ahead of choice. Light gathers at the platform and resolves into testimony, not words, intentions. They rise like motes, each a seed of thought harvested from the council days, praise, awe, obedience, and within one cluster, a slender filament that twists against the current. It does not dim the others. It simply refuses to bow. The witnesses do not blink. The scale's horizons tremble. From the left, a voice answers, not adversarial, only whole. Image requires will, it says, and the phrase seems to belong to many throats at once. If love cannot refuse, it cannot be love. The scale takes the sentence in like bread. Some say the trial is only a vision to teach the hosts. Others insist it is literal and binding. Both feel true enough to change you. A scribe of fire approaches the books. Rumor names him Metatron. 3 Anarch will whisper of such a recorder. A pen of light writes without ink. Motives weighed, permissions granted or withheld. The morning star bows precisely as long as reverence requires, and no pulse longer. If will is their crown, he says, then ring it with strong walls. The garden is better kept if thorns circle it on every side. Safe walls make small souls, answers a voice from the right, and a fragrance like rain finds you. The law is a tutor, not a prison. Let them choose life because they love it, not because no other door exists. A roll of script turns and flashes Deuteronomy's cadence. I set before you life and death. Choose life. The scale tilts toward freedom, then steadies. A procession glides forward. Not accusers, not defendants, but examples. You see sketches of futures like lantern light upon the crystal, a garden and a whisper, a wilderness where bread arrives with morning, a hill where a man will choose obedience though it breaks his body. The images do not argue. They simply breathe. High above, seals glow without opening. You sense the Lamb's book poised in the architecture of the moment, present by promise, absent by timing. Revelation will one day show this openly, for now you taste it like a name on the tongue. The Ancient of Days has not spoken. His silence is not absence. It is patience large enough to school sons. The witnesses tilt. No, not their faces, only their attention, and the balance brightens. The morning star's light sharpens, and for the first time, you feel something quick and cold behind it. Not concern for the image, but hunger for jurisdiction. Let there be proof, he says softly. Send a test into the fabric of their days. We will see who deserves the reflection they are offered. Job will one day live this sentence. Heaven permitting the sifting of a righteous man so earth learns that trust can hurt and still hold. But the trial now is larger. It is precedent reaching backward and forward at once. Some say Uriel guards the gate of such tests, refusing any trial staged as spectacle, murmurs a voice near you. Others say the gate stands open to every spirit that asks sincerely, even when the sincerity is bent. The debate does not resolve. The scale does not hurry. Another testimony rises, a recollection of a gaze held too long upon the throne, not in worship, but in measure. The filament thickens. The unbowed thread gathers weight. The morning star's brilliance does not falter, yet it feels suddenly like a mask that fits too tightly. Then the verdict, though the word is not spoken. It arrives like weather. A boundary appears that was not there a breath ago. Tests may come, permissions may be given, but stewardship is not granted to pride. Guardianship over the image will belong to service, to wounds borne for others, to hands that wash feet. The court writes this into the books as calmly as sunrise writes itself onto stone. The balance settles. Freedom holds. Control bows or refuses to bow and passes beyond the circle. The chamber exhales. The hosts lower their radiance. The witnesses return to a stillness that is not forgetfulness, but archive. The morning star steps back, and for a heartbeat his light flickers, not with weakness, but with a fury so contained it resembles peace. He smiles, small, perfect, and in that curve lives an oath you cannot yet hear. The platform dims. Fire returns to its rivers. The thrones become dawn again, and then become memory. Only the books remain open a moment longer, letting one last line shine before they close. Love will justify its risks. You leave with the sentence ringing in you like a bell no hand has struck. From somewhere just outside the hall, a hymn begins to form, a melody meant to heal the breach. Whether it will or whether it will tear instead, that awaits the next note. It begins so softly you almost miss it, a thread of tone slipping through the afterglow of the court like a stream underneath snow. The thrones have dissolved back into dawn, the balances into breath. Yet the air is still tuned, and the smallest melody can move mountains when everything listens. You feel it first in your ribs, a vibration more felt than heard, as if your bones remember a lullaby from a home you have not reached yet. The hymn enters from everywhere at once, not a choir, not at first, just a single, naked line, a line that doesn't try to prove anything. It holds the simplicity of a name spoken by someone who truly knows you. The witnesses do not turn, but their attention blooms the way fields bloom after rain. Light gathers in petals and pours itself toward the sound. More voices join, and now you recognize the signature of the morning stars. When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy, Job will say, here the verse is muscle and breath. The song climbs like sunrise, making space in every direction, finding harmonics inside the place's pride can't reach. It is medicine for an injury heaven refuses to pretend is not there. The melody is old, older than the council, older than the lattice of the worlds, but it has never been sung like this. It weaves what the court has written into the very air. Freedom crowned with love, love willing to risk, justice and mercy braided tight as rope. You find yourself humming before you realize you are, your spirit learning the path by walking it. Then another voice slides beneath the hymn, silk on stone, precise and beautiful. At first it seems to deepen the music, the way a river seems richer when it meets the sea. But something in its angle is strange. It changes the temperature without changing the notes. You glance toward the edge of the light and see him, the morning star, radiant and composed, singing with the exactness that once steadied the halls. You want to trust this addition, you almost do. Harmony should be generous, yet the new line doesn't join, it centers. It draws the ear away from the melody's patient ascent and toward a perfection that doesn't want to be carried, only admired. The hymn strains like a bridge bearing more weight on one side than the other. The watchers notice. Their stillness tightens. The witnesses brighten as if to record more carefully. The first singers, eager to heal the breach, widen their chords to make room. But the widening becomes a tear. What was once one note held by many grows into many notes, trying to become one and failing. Some say this hymn was authored by Michael, offered as balm for the court's tension. Others insist it was the Word himself who taught it before stars learned their orbits. A few whisper that no one authored it at all, that love is always singing, and the faithful only remember the tune. The debate wanders like incense through the rafters of the unseen. The book of Enoch tells of the luminaries, how they keep their paths and sing their appointed measures, never late, never lawless. Here, you see what happens when a path is kept with flawless technique but a misaligned heart. How precision can mimic obedience while denying surrender. The morning star's counterline is technically perfect. It is also suddenly heavy. The rest of the choir reshapes around it, the way a planet's crust shifts under the wrong moon. The melody falters, not because it is weak, but because it refuses to coerce. Love yields rather than dominate, even in music. That yielding makes space. The space becomes vacuum. The vacuum drinks. Sound that should cradle begins to carve. What was meant to knit becomes a blade. You hear the fracture before you see it. A soft unthreading in the middle. Registers like cloth pulled too far on the loom. The hymn splits along the question the court refused to enthrone, control or freedom. And the split produces overtones that don't belong in any faithful key. They glitter. They are intoxicating. They ring like the facets on a crown no one has given. Angels wince, if wincing is what light does when light hurts. Some dim themselves to keep the grief from pouring out. Others flare, trying to outshine the false center. Neither works. The hymn is now two hymns, one that breathes and one that poses. The first invites, the second advertises. The first is a road, the second is a mirror. A new phrase rises from the faithful line, steady as a heartbeat. Holy, holy, holy. Isaiah will one day hear it under a temple door, smoke and thresholds trembling. Here it moves like a slow river of glass, bearing the weight of many footfalls. The counterline answers with harmonies that resolve too quickly, beauties that refuse to wait for time's compassion to do its work. It offers glory without cost, order without surrender. You feel a flaw, or what passes for floor in this realm, thin. Translucent ripples run outward from the clash of tones, like circles after stones find the lake. They keep running and do not die. The witnesses do not intervene. They brighten and remain. Their very refusal to edit is the sternest comment imaginable. Scripture will later speak of a new song sung before a throne, a song only the redeemed can learn. This is not that. This is the attempt to copyright the sky. The morning star shapes a cadence that coerces attention. The faithful cadence keeps telling a slower story. You may choose me, or you may not. Love will still be here, patient as dawn. Some say Uriel moves then, a quiet step that recenters the room. Others argue that no archangel stirs until consent is abused on earth. A few insist the only motion is the mercy of the One, invisible and unhurried, letting every motive ripen in the open. You cannot tell which of these is truest. You only know the song is telling a truth about every singer in it. The last try at repair is exquisite. A smaller voice, clear, almost childlike, threads into the fracture with a tone so honest it stings. It does not fight the counterline, it prays through it. For a moment, the room remembers itself. The two hymns hover like twin birds, deciding whether to circle or strike. Silence gathers at the edges, listening for which will breathe next. The morning star smiles. It is a tiny thing, but the music hears it. His line lifts, not to bless but to bind. He anchors a perfect chord over the center of the chamber and refuses to release it. Perfection becomes pressure. Pressure becomes heat. Heat becomes a seam burning across the invisible floor. The faithful melody does not bow, and in its refusal, the seam opens. You feel the temperature drop as horizons pull apart. Sound breaks the way glass breaks, everything at once, everywhere at once. The hymn slashes down the length of heaven like a bright, clean crack. Light rushes toward the absence it creates. The ripples that never died find an edge to fall from. You look through the opening, and there is no name for what looks back. Not evil as you know it, not yet. More like the raw, outside of things, the place where forms go when they have not agreed to be formed. It is not a realm, it is a refusal, and it is hungry for definitions to swallow. The last echo of the faithful line hangs like a thread across the gap. It hums with a word you cannot quite hear, something like patience, something like promise. Then it settles into quiet, not defeated, only waiting. Around you, the host steadies. Some weep without tears. Some kneel on a floor that is now 2 floors. The witnesses record what cannot be forgotten. The morning star lowers his hands, and the smile is gone. In its place stands an intention that has found its path. The hymn has done what hymns do. It revealed hearts, and in the revealing, it tore the veil. Beyond the crack, a wind you cannot feel begins to gather its names. The gap does not heal. It widens, not quickly, not with violence, but with the terrible inevitability of ice splitting along a buried fault. The air near it bends like heat over stone, except there is no warmth here, only a cold that seems to drink the meaning out of light. At its edges, the host gathers, their ranks not by command, but by instinct. Some stand close, as if proximity might seal it. Others drift back, their radiance dimmed in quiet grief. No one speaks. The fracture hums like an unanswered question, and the silence of the ancient of days presses on the scene, like a weight the stars could not bear. You feel the pull of the rift. It is not gravity, it is curiosity, temptation, the lure of stepping where no law has yet been written. To cross it would not feel like rebellion at first, it would feel like discovery. The danger hides inside that beauty. Then the surface of the gap begins to change. It does not close, it shapes. The formless dark beyond swirls into whirls, then into threads, then into something that looks almost like a pathway, a bridge of shadow spun between 2 horizons. It is not built by the will of the throne. You can feel that instantly. This bridge is the work of invitation, subtle, careful, persuasive. He steps toward it. The morning star, his radiance still flawless, stands at the very lip of the crack. His hands are folded behind him. His posture is a study in calm. It is not a chasm, he says to no one in particular. It is a threshold. The worlds to come must be tested, and we must be the ones to test them. The throne has heard my plea and given us the means. The words glide over the assembly like oil on water, smooth, reflective, and hiding depth. You watch faces turn toward him, some with suspicion, some with dawning agreement. The fracture seems to brighten in response, as though fed by attention. Some say this is the first lie in heaven, not in content, for the statement is not entirely false, but in its intent. The book of Revelation will one day speak of a war in heaven, but war rarely begins with swords. It begins here with a bridge no one asked for, built across a choice no one fully understands yet. The watchers move forward. Their forms are unshaken, their eyes full of the throne's quiet fire. They do not touch him. They do not touch the bridge. They simply stand where the path begins, their presence alone a question. By whose word was this made? He does not answer them directly. Instead, he turns to the host and speaks again, his tone now warm, almost sorrowful. If love cannot be perfected without choice, then choice must be given a stage. We cannot protect the image bearers from themselves without first proving we can protect ourselves from the same fault. The logic is flawless on the surface. Beneath, it is bait. For in this reasoning, the stage is not the garden to come, but the hearts standing here now. A voice from deep within the ranks of the loyal responds, soft yet resonant. The stage has already been set. The one who made the image will keep it. We are not its keepers, only its servants. The words ripple outward, striking the fracture like a pebble dropped into a dark pool. The bridge flickers. The morning star's gaze tightens. Then you would refuse the chance to prove your loyalty? His question is silk over steel. A few shift uneasily. Some step closer to him. The rift drinks in their motion. Scripture will later call the adversary the accuser of our brethren, one who stands to test and to divide. Here, the accusation is veiled as invitation. Come with me if you truly wish to serve. The Ancient of Days still does not speak. His silence now feels like a canvas on which every heart is painting its allegiance. The silent witnesses remain unmoved, brighter now, as if the record they keep must be written in light too strong to be edited. You sense they know this moment will echo through every age that follows, and their stillness is the seal that no word here will ever be lost. Then a shift, subtle but final. The morning star places his foot upon the bridge. The shadow beneath him deepens, and the pathway extends further into the void. His voice lowers, but it carries. If you would keep your freedom, walk with me. Let us build our own thrones, not in defiance, but in fulfillment. Some say Uriel flared then, his light casting the bridge into stark relief, revealing its true nature. Not a path to freedom, but a tether to pride. Others believe the throne allowed it to remain, knowing that only by stepping into the dark would every allegiance be proven beyond debate. One by one, shapes begin to move. Not many at first, but enough to shift the balance of the hall. The gap hums louder. The bridge glows faintly with a light that does not come from the source. You feel the pull on your own spirit, the question tightening like a knot. What would you choose if choice stood here before you? Some will never cross. Some already have in their hearts, and the fracture, patient as winter, waits for the moment it will no longer be a wound, but a doorway. The moment arrives without trumpet or thunder. No decree is shouted, no lines are drawn by command. Instead, the air shifts, and you feel the unseen weight of decisions being sealed in silence. The bridge of shadow waits like an open question, and one by one, the answers begin to walk. They move with purpose, not hurried, but steady. Each step carries the same strange mix of reverence and resolve, as if they still believe they serve the throne by crossing away from it. Their radiance does not dim at first. It gleams as though untouched. That is the most dangerous part. How unchanged the light appears when the heart has already shifted. The watchers do not move to block them. Their stillness is not permission, but witness. The silent witnesses shine brighter now, their light reflecting across the span so that every face is illuminated before it disappears into the void. This is the record, and it will be perfect. The morning star walks among those crossing, not at the front, not at the rear, but weaving through them like a shepherd, ensuring no one loses their footing. His voice is low, almost private, yet it carries to every ear. The author gave us freedom. Let us prove worthy by creating without constraint. The worlds to come will thank us for our courage. Some believe these words. Others hesitate mid-step, the pull of the rift tugging against the memory of the throne's gaze. A few turn back, their light trembling as they retreat toward the loyal ranks. For those, the watchers step aside and let them pass without word or mark. Revelation will later speak of a tail sweeping a third of the stars from the sky. Here, you feel the truth of it, not as numbers, but as ache. Each departure leaves a hollow in the music of heaven, a chord unresolved. The host grows thinner, the air colder. The void beyond the bridge does not roar, it waits. Those who enter it vanish without ripple, their forms dissolving into a deeper, lightless realm. You sense no suffering, no instant punishment, only a change in gravity, as if something else now claims them. A debate stirs among those who remain. Some say no one who leaves can return. Others insist that until the garden exists and choice is offered there, all choices are still in rehearsal. Both arguments sound like hope, and both feel like denial. The morning star pauses near the center of the bridge. His gaze sweeps the loyal ranks, not in anger, but in appraisal. You stand still because you fear the dark, he says, the tone almost pitying. But the one you serve made it too. Shall we not explore all his works? The words hang like incense. They are not a lie, but they carry a lie's direction. Truth bent just enough to point toward a different center. You feel the pull again, the subtle lure of redefining obedience as boldness. From deep in the loyal ranks, a voice answers, calm and unshaken. The darkness he made has boundaries. It is not ours to step beyond them. The bridge flickers, its edges thinning for a breath before regaining shape. The morning star's eyes narrow almost imperceptibly. The watchers glance toward the throne. The Ancient of Days remains unmoved, his silence as complete as the first moment before the worlds were born. In that silence, the final crossings are made. The last hesitant forms step forward, and the gap between the ranks stops widening. Not because the bridge is closed, but because all who would cross have crossed. Then, without warning, the bridge shudders, not collapsing, not vanishing, but locking into place like a door slamming in reverse. The realm beyond swallows its new inhabitants. Their light fades from view, and with it, the music they once carried. For the first time, you feel the absence, not just of their voices, but of their presence in the balance of heaven. It is as if a part of the air has been emptied, leaving the loyal host breathing a thinner sky. Some say the war begins here. Others say it is still only a prelude, that the true clash will not come until the garden, until dust walks and chooses for itself. But you can already feel it. The alignment has shifted, the currents are different, and the rift has found its shape. The morning star stands at the far edge now, fully in the realm beyond. He does not look back, and in that refusal, you see what the court's silence was waiting for. The choice made in full view, without compulsion. The bridge remains, a black thread across eternity. It will not vanish, not yet, for the story has further to fall before it begins to rise. The bridge is no longer just a bridge, it has become a tether. On one side, the loyal host stands in the unshaken radiance of the throne. On the other, a gathering of light-bearers who no longer look toward that radiance, their eyes turned inward or outward, but never back. The awe between the two realms is stretched thin, and in the tension you can feel a truth too heavy for words. What has left will not return unchanged. Beyond the rift, the space is different. It is not darkness as mortals imagine it, empty or suffocating, but a kind of inverted light, a brilliance turned inward, reflecting only itself. Shapes move there with freedom, but not the kind heaven keeps. This is the freedom of unmoored stars, no longer bound to the gravity of their creator. The morning star stands at the forefront, his voice carrying across the divide. We have chosen our own dominion, he declares, and the throne has not stopped us. We will fashion realms where will is sovereign, and no law binds except the law we write ourselves. His words are met with assent from those who followed him, their agreement a pulse that rolls across the void like a silent wave. From the loyal side, the watchers observe, unmoving. Their eyes, if they can be called eyes, are fixed on the new realm taking shape. You can feel their vigilance, not in preparation for attack, but in readiness to record every moment until the appointed hour. The silent witnesses stand further back, their brilliance unwavering. The archive of this fracture etched deeper with each passing breath. Some say this is the moment when the chains were forged, not by the throne, but by the very choices of those who left. The book of Jude will later speak of angels who did not keep their own domain, but abandoned their proper dwelling, kept in eternal bonds under darkness, until judgment. Here you see the paradox. The chains are not wrapped round them. They carry them as crowns, mistaking the weight for glory. Time, if such a thing can be measured here, passes differently beyond the rift. The realm begins to take on form, drawn from the will of its rulers. Landscapes of crystal and flame appear, mountains without summits, rivers that flow upward into skies that never dim. It is beautiful in the way a mirror is beautiful, perfect, but only as deep as its surface. The morning star walks among his followers, speaking of what they will build, what they will command, and how their creation will rival the thrones. Yet beneath the grandeur lies a quiet truth. Nothing here is truly new. Every element is a reflection, a borrowing from what was first spoken in the council of heaven. There is no life here, only shape and light without breath. From the loyal side, a voice rises, carrying across the tether. You have taken what is not yours to give. The breath belongs to the one who made it. The words strike the void like a bell, and for a heartbeat, the tether quivers. But it holds. Some of those who crossed waver at the sound, their light flickering as memory stirs. The morning star notices. He moves quickly, his presence wrapping around them like warm silk, drawing their gaze back to him. Do not listen to voices that would pull you backward, he says, gentle yet firm. We have crossed into a greater calling. The chains you feel are the remnants of your old obedience. Cast them off. The watchers exchange no glance, no word, yet you sense they mark his sentence with the precision of a scribe. Each promise made here will return in the trial to come. And then something changes. The inverted light beyond the rift begins to ripple, as though an unseen current is moving through it. From deep within that realm, a shadow deeper than the shadow appears, a place where the reflection cannot reach. You feel the air tighten. Some of the exiled draw back. Others step toward it with curiosity. The morning star does not retreat. He studies the depth and speaks low, almost to himself. Every kingdom needs a foundation. His followers listen, their eyes fixed on the new dark. You know instinctively this is no mere emptiness. It is a prison being born, though not for him. Not yet. The throne's light does not cross the rift, but it watches. The silent witnesses turn their full attention toward the new depth, and the act of their watching feels like a seal pressed into molten wax. Whatever is happening here is already bound into the scroll of what must be. Some will call this place the deep, the abyss from which there is no return, without the throne's command. It will be the holding ground for what must be restrained until the fullness of judgment. The chains spoken of in ages to come are being woven here, strand by strand, not from iron, but from consequence. You feel the truth settle on you like a slow dawn. The further they build from the throne, the closer they come to the very boundaries they sought to escape. The realm beyond the rift may feel endless now, but its horizon is already closing in. The bridge remains in place, thinner now, almost transparent, as though time, or something older than time, has begun to wear it away. The watchers keep their post. The loyal host stands ready. And beyond the gap, the fallen begin to realize that freedom without the source is not the same as life. The rift thins to a line you could mistake for a crack in glass until you listen. What you hear is not breaking but breathing. A slow, measured inhale that keeps the realms from collapsing into each other. You've heard this rhythm before, back when the first stone rolled through the void and the lattice of worlds woke like a page being turned. Now the breath is quieter, disciplined, guarding the boundaries that mercy and justice agreed upon in the court. You move with the watchers along an avenue that wasn't there and yet has always been there, paved with nothing but attention. On either side, standing stones of light rise like frozen tides. They hold no inscriptions you can read, but their surfaces ripple with the memory of everything that has happened since the hymn split. Every step across the bridge, every turning back, every oath swallowed hard. The silent witnesses pass among these markers slowly, their brightness lowered to a hush, as if their very glow might disturb the seal they're escorting you toward. Ahead, the avenue narrows. A pressure gathers in the air, not hostile, simply exacting. You feel it first in your shoulders, then behind your eyes, the way a mountain's altitude asks your blood to learn a new tempo. The path breaks into a plaza that is not a place so much as a decision made visible. A wide circle, clear as crystal, with 4 arcs of radiance facing the corners of what will one day be called north, south, east, west. Between the arcs, space hangs like a held note. Nothing crosses without consent. At the circle's heart, the gates sleep. Not doors, gates, living thresholds woven of quiet and fire. They seem simple, like the oldest designs always do. Each is a pattern of braided light, its strands looping and locking with the patience of rivers. When you draw close, you feel their meaning rather than see it. This far, no further, not yet. Wait for the appointed hour. Scripture will one day speak of a time when an angel laid hold of the dragon and bound him 1,000 years and threw him into the abyss and shut it and sealed it over him. Revelation 20. Here, the grammar of that future is already present. The shutting and the sealing are not punishments thrown in anger. They are closures chosen by love to keep the end from starting too soon. Some say Uriel tends these thresholds, the guardian of dawn stationed where endings rehearse themselves as beginnings held in reserve. Others say it is Michael who stands watch, the promise of defense written into his very name. A quieter tradition insists no single archangel owns this vigil, that the gates answer only to the word, whose breath once tuned the counsel and will, at the right hour, untie what must be loosed. The debate hangs like incense in the high, bright air, unresolved and holy. The morning star does not come here now. His realm beyond the rift is busy with architecture, mirrors and heights, ascending halls that spiral without landing. But his absence makes the plaza no less tense. The gates exist because his oath found a path, and because the future must be guarded against the impatience of both pride and fear. You step to the first arc. Its weave hums under your awareness, a soft, syllabled cadence that feels like covenant. For a breath, the strands part just enough for you to glimpse what they restrain. Not armies waiting to flood heaven, not yet, but timings. Events folded like wings, seasons coiled like springs. You see a garden under evening, a serpent speaking in grammar that flatters, a choice so small it fits between fingers and so wide it stretches history. You see a flood that will rinse the world's face without scrubbing off its image. You see a hill where wood and mercy intersect, and time gathers like fabric in a fist. The strands close gently, not to hide, but to keep sight from becoming theft. You remember the library of unwritten scrolls, the hands of fire, the sentence that walked the length of a page like weather? Choose life. Here, that sentence has teeth. The gates are where choosing is guarded from coercion and where consequence is taught patience. From the circle's rim, a voice you have come to trust speaks, not loud, not even directed at you, more like an annotation laid beside the moment. The seals are mercy to the unready, it says, and mercy to the wicked as well. Judgment delayed is kindness, twice. The witnesses brighten at the phrasing. Its economy pleases them. You turn toward the second arc. Its braid is different, tighter, almost severe, as if it's learned from 1,000 small rehearsals how easily doors become breaches. The strands here flash with images you cannot hold for more than a heartbeat. Towers built to touch a sky that doesn't need touching. Kings crowned by noise. Prophets whispering to stones that refuse to drink. In the blur, you hear a verse that will one day be written. He who opens and no one shuts, who shuts and no one opens. The name behind the verse presses the air with kindness that feels like steel. Some say these gates keep back the end. Others say they keep back an imitation of the end. The cheap spectacle that pride always tries to stage when it's bored of faithfulness. You can't decide which claim is heavier, which is more tender. Perhaps both are true. At the third arc, the weave sighs. This one feels older, like a lullaby sung to creation when it had night terrors. It smells, if a gate can smell, like rain remembering where to fall. Through it, you taste edges of the Sabbath no clock has known. Fields resting, debts forgiven, slaves walking home with names returned to them. The breath that holds the realms apart passes through this arc with a deeper timbre. You think of Genesis, evening and morning, a day. You think of the seventh, holy not because it does, but because it lets be. The gate is a kept Sabbath and the cosmos leans on it. The fourth arc is the most transparent. You almost miss it. Its modesty is a disguise. When you stand before it, the plaza grows quiet in a new way, as if the world has found the exact center of a scale. The strands here are thin and innumerable, crossing like starlight seen through tears. They restrain not events or armies, but names, identities the future will try to counterfeit. You hear them as notes: lamb, lion, root and offshoot. Morning star reclaimed from the thief who glittered and left. Each name is a lock against lies. Each is also a key. The gate knows which is which. The watchers keep their stations. They do not pace. They do not peer. Their readiness is rest. The silent witnesses stand at equal distances around the circle, their radiance forming a soft crown above the plaza. When the breath of the realms grows ragged, pulled hard by arguments or songs out of tune, their light evens it. From far across the rift, a tremor reaches the gates, a pulse from the inverted realm where thrones without crown climb the air. It arrives thin as a rumor and sharp as a thorn. The braids do not flinch. They tighten just enough to remind the air of its promise. The plaza's clarity deepens until it feels like water held in a curved palm. You think of Eden, of a garden whose boundary was itself a kind of gate, two trees teaching the difference between hunger and wisdom. You think of a flaming sword turning every way. Genesis will tell it so. Not to keep love out, but to keep love from ending too soon by grasping before it's given. The gates you face are that sword's older cousins, their flames cool and sane, their turnings gentle as a planet's patience. A question rises in you like a blush. What keeps these gates sealed? Power could do it, raw, absolute. But the weave you feel is not a fist. It is a vow. The word that spun lattices, the word the court waited for, the word that will one day weep. He is the knot in every braid. As long as he waits, the end will wait. As long as he breathes, the boundaries will breathe with him. Some say the seals will crack with trumpet and bowl, with thunder and glass seas spilling and a sky rolled like a scroll. Others whisper that when it happens, it will sound less like catastrophe and more like a held breath released, the way a long labor turns suddenly to a child's cry. You file both images where you've learned to keep holy disagreements, in the drawer marked "not yet." You take one last, slow circuit of the circle. The plaza hums faintly, tuned to the sentence the court left ringing. Love will justify its risks. If love risked freedom, love must also guard the hour when history can hold the truth of its own ending without being shattered by it. That is what the gates do. They keep the story from rushing to the last page so that every chapter has the chance to mean what it must. Behind you, the watchers exhale together, once barely audible. It sounds like agreement. Before you, the braids rest, luminous and patient. Somewhere very far away, in a land not yet planted, wind moves through a place where two rivers will meet, and a man of dust will hear his name. The gates do not open. The world is not ready. But you are closer now to the hour when they will. You stand with those who did not cross. Their number feels small at first. Grief makes even a multitude seem thin. But as your eyes adjust to the throne's calm brightness, the remnant gathers like constellations, recalling their shapes. They do not clench swords or compose speeches. They breathe, they remember. And in that remembering, they begin to vow. Light pools around the feet of the loyal like clear water where a river slows before a bend. The watchers keep the perimeter, quiet as millstones. Far beyond them, the rift lies like a nerve exposed, and beyond the rift, the inverted realm keeps building its mirrors and stairs. Yet here the air is steady, tuned again to the sentence that settled after the court. Love will justify its risks. You feel the vow arrive before anyone speaks it. It comes as a pressure behind the ribs, as if the chest wants to widen to hold something larger than breath. One voice breaks first, not higher in rank, only quicker to surrender. If the image will one day walk, we will keep the paths that lead to it clear. The words are simple, their weight is not. The host answers not with volume, but with unanimity. The agreement sounds like wind slipping through fur at dusk. Scripture will later put marrow to this moment with the phrase, "Who is like God?" Michael's name carried not as a boast, but as a question that guards against pride. You hear that question now, not shouted, but woven into the vow itself. The remnant does not promise to be sufficient. They promise to point away from themselves. The oath is spoken in layers. First, to guard what has not yet begun, to keep clear the lattice you glimpsed when the word first drew threads of cosmos across the unlit sea. Second, to refuse music that binds rather than blesses, so that should the hymn be offered again, its counterline will not find a host. Third, to attend the gates without impatience, to live at the edge of not yet without trying to pry it open. You think of the garden that waits its planting, of evening and morning that will teach rhythms to dust. Genesis will tell those rhythms like a lullaby the earth never forgets. The remnant swears to keep that lullaby clean from counterfeit. No sleepy fog of control, no narcotic certainty that calls itself faithfulness. Real rest, real work, real boundaries. Some say this oath is commanded from the throne, others insist it rises freely, the natural shape of love when it has seen a wound and refuses to harden. A third tradition whispers that the oath was written into the host before their first song, remembered now only because loss pressed it to the surface. The debate floats over the gathering like incense that honors all sides. No one rushes to settle it. From the circle's edge, a figure of gentle gravity enters the vow, not to lead it, but to lend it a center. The air around him smells faintly of rain over stone. Raphael, say some, whose charge is healing, or perhaps Uriel, whose fire schools the dawn. You cannot be sure. Names here are duties shaped into presence. He speaks little, but when he does, the promise tightens like a knot pulled firm. Guard by serving, win by yielding, hold by letting be. The oath turns practical. Paths are assigned, not hierarchical lanes, but callings that fit like sandals worn in by long obedience. Some will attend the gates, their faces learned in the patience of not yet. Some will keep the hymn, listening for fractures before they widen. Some will shadow the edges of the rift, not to stare into the inverted realm, but to catch the hesitant who wander too near and need only one honest word to remember the way home. Others will study the lattice, mapping the harmonies of seas and seasons so that when dust breathes, angels know how to keep silence that helps more than speech. The book of Enoch murmurs across the scene like an aside you can hear with your bones. Watchers assigned to winds, to stars, to rivers, keepers of names and measures. Here those hints find bodies. You see attendants of snow and storehouses of hail. Words Job will one day receive and tremble under. Not weaponized, but stewarded. Powers to be released in their hours without turning gift into spectacle. A smaller company steps forward, faces veiled, not from shame but from a brightness so intimate it might distract the rest. Their vow is different, to carry messages that alter history by inches, to stand at bedsides and crossroads and whisper courage too gentle to be traced by ink. They will be the ones who wake a carpenter before a tyrant's blade finds the child, who strengthen a prophet under a broom tree, who turn a soldier's violence into a confession before a cross. Their oath is the softest and the hardest, to be overlooked on purpose. And then comes the peace that makes every shoulder square a little, the promise not to despise the dust. Pride's music will later weaponize the fragility of men and women, too small, too stubborn, too stained. The remnant answers in advance. We will not sneer at the image. When dust forgets, we will remind. When dust boasts, we will deflate without breaking. When dust despairs, we will braid its fingers with hope until hope remembers its own grip. A seal descends, not wax, not flame, but something of both. It rests above the assembly like a low moon, silver at the rim, gold at the heart, and inside it you glimpse scenes braided with promise, a ladder rising from a sleeping man's stone, a furnace where a fourth walks, a lion's den whose mouths forget their instructions, a room where wind writes languages on frightened faces and sends them singing into the streets. The seal does not command, it confirms. The vow has taken. One line is added to the oath in a voice so quiet you mistake it for your own thought. Remember the first light. It means the moment in section 1 when you felt the word gathering breath, the shimmer that was not yet sight, the tone that tuned everything else. The remnant will keep calling back to that moment, not to re-explain it, but to re-center around it whenever counsel becomes argument and zeal forgets tenderness. The watchers exchange a look that barely counts as motion. Even their glances are measured. They shift, forming a thin crescent that faces the rift. The remnant aligns with them, not to posture, but to practice standing together. The alignment hums, and for a breath, the gap's pull weakens. Those who stare too long into the inverted realm feel a cord slacken around their thoughts. They blink, step back, breathe easier. Small mercies like this will be the daily work of this oath. You sense a question surface, practical and holy at once. When dust arrives, will the oath change? The answer comes as weather rather than syllable, a breeze that smells of crushed fig leaf and open tomb. The oath will not change, it will unfold. What is sworn now for a realm without clocks will be translated into time's grammar, into errands, warnings, dreams, songs, protections that look like chants. Scripture lends a single line to mark the moment without tightening it into a rule. He will give his angels charge over you, not as a guarantee against every bruise, but as a witness that the remnant's promise exists inside the author's own keeping. The verse slides through the vow like a thread you cannot see until the light catches it. Some say Michael writes the oath in letters of thunder across a sky only angels can read. Others say it is hidden inside ordinary tasks, written on the back of a broom, the edge of a shepherd's staff, the handle of a carpenter's plane, so that humility can carry it farther than pride. Either way, the remnant stands straighter when the thought passes. Far off, the inverted realm sends another thin tremor. It tastes of self-crowned wisdom and towers that want a name. The remnant answers, not with a counter-tremor, but with stillness so dense it becomes shelter. The gates rest. The hymn waits for the right evening to be sung where men will hear it and think. At first it is only wind in olive leaves. The vow closes, the way a hand closes around a seed. Nothing flashy, everything committed. You feel it settle not only into those who speak it, but into the space itself, as if the hall has learned a new chord it will not forget. When the garden opens and the serpent rehearses his flattery, when deserts test and kingdoms glitter, when grief sits on stones outside borrowed tombs, this is the chord that will keep sounding under every scene. The remnant disperse without dispersion, as if a single flame had learned how to stand in 1,000 places at once. The watchers resume their patience. The silent witnesses brighten a fraction, then return to their steady hush. Above the plaza, the seal lifts and thins until it is indistinguishable from dawn. Somewhere past the gates, rivers find their beds and wait for feet. Somewhere on the other side of time, a woman listens to wings and says yes. Somewhere in the inverted halls, a smile sharpens into a plan. You are led away not by command, but by consent, the way water leaves a cup when the hand tips. The oath of the remnant hums behind you like a held note. There is one chapter left before the garden breathes. The air cools, the sentences lengthen, and the stars you cannot see yet feel like they are drawing closer. You arrive at the lip of a world that hasn't inhaled yet. The soil beneath you is not soil so much as promise, and the air tastes like a word the mouth is about to speak. Evening leans softly against the horizon, and you feel the hush that follows orchestras just before the conductor lifts his hand. This is the moment the story has guarded, the pause between decree and dawn, when dust waits for breath and breath waits for invitation. Before you stretches a garden drawn by patience. Rivers split and recombine like strands of a blessing, naming lands the way lullabies name children. Trees stand with quiet confidence, each leaf a cool syllable. Somewhere in the middle, two trunks lift their crowns, one teaching trust, one promising knowledge before wisdom is ready to carry it. Their shade is gentle, their nearness is not a trap, it is a curriculum. You recognize details your spirit learned long ago, when the lattice first shimmered like threads across an unlit sea. The same tone that woke the hall then hums here at ground level, barely audible, the way a mother hums without deciding to. The earth is tuned, the stones are tuned. Even the wind moves as if it's studied under Sabbath. Genesis will tell this night with simple grammar. The Lord God formed man of dust and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. But here you watch the verbs gather like rain. Dust collects, yes, but not as clay dragged into shape. It gathers as if each particle remembers a childhood promise to the other. Form appears like a shoreline, appears when tide meets land, gradual, inevitable, good. Then the breath, not forced, not thundered, given. It crosses the small distance between the giver and the formed, and in that crossing, time finds its pulse. You feel it, even from the edge where you stand, a warm pressure in your chest, an ache that immediately stops aching because it is being answered. The figure trembles, opens his eyes, and the world opens with him. Eden exhales. The watchers are here, though you do not see them move. The oath of the remnant holds like a canopy, no crowding, no spectacle, only readiness. They do not interfere with the first steps. They let wonder do its work. A few carry the old hymn under their breath, careful not to let it rise into performance. The melody is simpler now, a cradle tune. The counterline has no host here. A whisper of debate travels the garden gently, honest and untroubled by its own uncertainty. Some say the one walked here daily, in a form the dust could recognize. Others say the presence arrived as wind in the branches and the cool logic of evening. A quieter few insist. He was both, voice and breeze, question and comfort. The disagreement sits down like friends under a fig tree and shares bread. Eden is safe enough for questions said softly. You remember the council and the trial, the balance bright with two horizons, freedom and control. The verdict that felt like weather settles on the scene. Love will justify its risks. The risk is visible. The trees do not hide. Choice is not caged. It is welcomed, instructed, blessed, warned. Law stands here as a tutor, not a prison. Boundary as a kindness, not a dare. The book of Enoch will one day speak of watchers who fell for the daughters of men, of secrets given before the soil could bear them. That echo brushes the edges of your awareness like a cool draft. It will come, that chapter. Impatience always rehearses early, but tonight the gates hold their vow. Not yet. Knowledge will arrive by wisdom's door, or it will not be knowledge. You walk, no, you are carried, toward the center. Names are given and received. Animals learn their shapes under the kindness of being seen. You notice how naming does not conquer, it invites. The man speaks, and the garden answers without flinching. Relationship, not rulebook, is the first law here. A second figure joins the first, not drawn from a new pile of dust, but called from within a life already singing, so that companionship begins as recognition rather than acquisition. Joy takes on a different timbre, rounder, less solitary. The watchers feel their shoulders loosen. The hymn changes key, lower, fuller. Night collects, but it does not threaten. Stars, finally at last, prick the dark with patient light. And you think of section 1, of that pre-dawn cradle, where stars were only promises. They burn now, like vows kept. Their ancient silence does not compete with the garden's young sounds. It frames them. From beyond the rift, a rumor of motion passes like a cold hand near a flame. Stairs without landings, mirrors without faces. A smile practiced for the day, flattery will be needed. The gates breathe once, this far, no further. The plaza of thresholds holds. The silent witnesses do not blink. Their record remains steady, benevolent, uneditable. You feel the morning star notice this new world, a glance without entrance, a calculation that pretends to be concern. He is patient. Pride always is until it thinks patience is weakness. He measures paths to the trees, the way a thief studies keys. The oath of the remnant tightens like a belt before a journey. No alarms, no panic, only readiness to serve. The evening breeze arrives with the timbre of a voice that knows your name before you answer to it. The garden listens the way lungs listen to air. Questions are asked that do not accuse. Instructions are given that do not bruise. Rest is offered like bread. The first Sabbath lies only one day away. But the rhythm of its mercy is already here in the way work does not hurry and delight does not apologize. You stand at the seam where heaven's courtroom, library and gates become a nursery. Everything you saw behind you has been for this, that a creature of dust might walk awake in a world that is not afraid of him, and that he might not be afraid of the one who made him. The risks are real. The serpents will arrive. The hymn will need to be sung in minor keys before morning. But for now is gift. You remember a sentence written across an endless scroll. Behold, I set before you life and death. Choose life. Here the sentence is no longer ink. It is air. It is water. It is the softness of a hand finding another hand as twilight gathers. Some say, Uriel stands just beyond the tree line, watching the shadows for rehearsals that don't belong. Others say, Raphael lingers at the river bend, teaching the water how to forgive footprints. You cannot see either, yet the kindness of their rumors keeps the night from feeling too large. As the first sleep approaches, the garden deepens into a quiet that is not emptiness, but fullness, set to a lower volume. You think again of the first silence, the womb of reality before the word spoke, and you hear the rhyme between then and now. The stars have been born and still they learn to listen. The earth has arms, the sky leans down, the breath keeps its promise one lung at a time. When you turn to leave, no gate swings, no trumpet sounds. You simply begin to drift the way a prayer drifts after it has been heard. Behind you, laughter will be invented, names will gather meaning, and work will feel like play that helps things become themselves. Ahead of you, history waits, bright and torn, holy and human. The oath of the remnant hums like a low chord under it all. The witnesses lay there, pens aside for the night, not because the record stops, but because the page now writes itself in living lines. You carry forward what the court concluded and the hymn confessed. Control can build mirrors, but only love grows gardens, and love has chosen to risk itself on dust that can answer back. Word count 1094. Wind down. Breathe a little slower. Let the sentences lengthen and loosen, like river grass slipping past your ankles. Remember the shimmer before the first light, the lattice spread like threads across an unlit sea, the single tone that tuned the room and then the world. Let that tone settle into your chest the way dusk settles into leaves. In this quiet, imagine the breath crossing that tiny distance again, gift, not demand, until your own breathing learns its rhythm. The stars haven't been born, they have now, and even they dim their voices to let you rest. The gates are shut for the night, the witnesses keep their soft watch. The oath of the remnant curls like a ribbon under your thoughts, tying the day closed without knots. Some say sleep is only a small rehearsal for trust. Others say it is the first language we ever spoke with God. Either way, you are safe to practice. The garden is near, even if you cannot feel the grass. The river is near, even if you cannot hear it. The breath is near, always nearer than your worry. So close your eyes. Let the first dawn wait for you. It will. Let the hymn stop asking and start holding. The stars have dimmed, but something holy lingers.